Laura Jays, what went wrong for the Liberals?
Well, I'd add to the list that Joel just gave you, it's structural as well. When you look at these results, there is zero good news without caveat for the Liberal Party here. They have not just an identity crisis now, they don't have any real representation to speak of, not only in the inner cities, but in the suburbs, in the outer suburbs where the elections are won and lost and where they hope they could claw this back. In Victoria, where Labor is on the nose at a state level. So, I mean, the Nationals have held up. They've held up in Cowper. They might get Bendigo. If they don't get Bendigo, you know, they've still been able to achieve a 10% swing against a sitting Labor member there. So, look, I think David Littleproud has done a good job. That was outside of the mainstream media. But I would say as well for the Liberal Party, the fact that we're sitting here this morning talking about Peter Dutton having lost his seat and the likely person to take over being another man, they don't have any women in the party in real leadership roles who could possibly take over that.
Not the deputy leader?
Well, no, I don't think so. Let's be honest. I mean, really, do we think that she is the future? And look at the results as well. I mean, women, young people in particular. Now, we've spoken on this panel about how young people are so difficult to poll, under 44. Well, under 50-year-olds are not looking at the Liberal Party as a real prospect. And they have flippantly dismissed the Teals, I think, too much. And look at those Teal candidates. A lot of them in the old Liberal Party should have been Liberal candidates, and they're not. So they've got a structural problem there. They're not pre-selecting people early enough. They're not getting the best talent. So they've got to look at that, because I've got to say, some of them are just a bit weird and they're not speaking to the electorate.
All right, I'm going to stir the pot now and ask Chris Kenny if nuclear is dead in Australia after this result.
Yes, it is.
Well, it shouldn't be, because it's the right policy for the country, and Joel would agree with me on that. And it's a classic case of where this coalition has lost the power of advocacy, and they've surrendered their long-term policy advocacy to political chicanery. And when you go to The Voice, for instance, where I think people tried to invest way too much partisan political advantage out of that. That was not a win for the coalition. This was a separate issue, a national referendum, and people who were suggesting this was going to give lift-off to the coalition misunderstood The Voice. Remember, 60-40 people wanted The Voice, so people sort of got rid of it because they didn't get enough information, didn't like the idea. Well, it wasn't an endorsement of the coalition in any way. But on nuclear, the coalition made the same mistake as Albanese. They didn't give any detail. They didn't argue it for years, months in advance. They just tried to sneak it out there through the campaign. You need to start the debate about Australia's energy future tomorrow and continue it through to the next election. But I want to go back to a little bit more about what the problems are with the coalition, Andrew. And the first point, a golden rule of politics, is nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems.
Sure.
So that's where you start. But, yeah, they've got massive problems. And to Laura's point, look, their deputy leader is a woman. So, sure, everyone wants more and better people in the parliament and more women. Great.
She had a massive swing against her as well, by the way,
but
from
that's
an independent.
The big issue is personnel. And that was clear before the election. The election has exposed that. Peter Dutton obviously is not the person people wanted as Prime Minister, but he's a good performer who's landed the odd blow against Labor and who's been a good minister. After Peter Dutton, what is there? Now, you search around now, who's going to lead this party? They are really struggling for personnel, so that's a big problem.
And most of the talent is locked up in the Senate.
Well,
you'd have to think about Andrew Hastie, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, but if I was advising Andrew Hastie, I'd say the last thing in the world he should do is go for the leadership now. Yeah, he's too young.
Well, someone has to do it.
Someone has to be leader, how long can he sit back for?
Look, I've got to ask, if I can ask Chris, look, the problem with nuclear, the way they did it, 7 federal government-owned plants, and then they announced it without cost. So it's like they announced the biggest change to energy policy in Australia's history, and then didn't have a second-day press conference.
Yeah, well,
just said, "Oh, let's try and hide this massive elephant in the room."
Well, exactly. It's like The Voice. Here's The Voice. I'll give you the detail later, and Albo never did. And they tried the same thing with nuclear. Bad. You've got to take people into your confidence, argue the case. And the real issue here is not so much is it nuclear versus renewables. It's that the current renewable system is leading to higher prices and a lack of supply. We're heading for disaster. So it's about fixing it. The best thing Albo could do, I'd like to get Joel to endorse this, the best thing Albo could do in the next couple of months is adopt that nuclear policy and make it bipartisan.
My goodness.
You still go renewable.
It's not going to happen,
for the sake of the country. That's what you need.
Chris Kenny, 5 o'clock every day saying that and not happening. Joel Fitzgibbon.
Is that coffee you have in there?
Well, I mean, the point is the country's facing an energy crisis and someone's got to deal with it. But back to the Liberals, the other structural issue is those state branches. Western Australia, disaster. South Australia, joke. Victoria, basket case. New South Wales, not much better.
In administration.
So you've got to have an organisation that gets candidates in place. And, what do they believe in? Too many of them have forgotten it. You can actually go to the Liberal Party website and look at the We Believe statement, and it's pretty clear what they should believe in. They're just too frightened to argue it. They should believe in smaller government and more choice and individual freedom. When do you ever hear them talking about it?